Hello everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel, welcome back to another episode. My name is Dr. Alex George. I'm here to build your mental fitness and mine along the way. Today I'm doing an episode of the Stompcast, which is my podcast where I go for a walk with a guest to learn how we can use their expertise to help our mental and our physical health. Over the last 2 years, we've recorded 7 full days, 24 hours a day's worth of recording and conversations. I've learned a lot, but I've always got more to learn. Today's guest is an incredible guest and actually was the second guest on the Stompcast over 2 years ago, Dr. Julie Smith. You'll probably know her from being one of the leading voices of therapy online. She's got like 6 million followers. She creates incredible videos on TikTok and Instagram. And of course, her first book, Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before, sold over 1 million copies and is in like 42 different countries, which is crazy and incredible, but shows A, how much people want mental health and mental fitness advice, and B, how good her advice actually is. So we've got her on the Stompcast today. I'm here out in the park. We record outside in real conditions. We're not snug and warm in a studio, not that I'm jealous, but we're outside and we enjoy it because I believe that walking in nature can transform our lives. Today's going to be an awesome episode. If you want to listen to the full Stompcast episode, it's all on audio at the moment. In this video, you're going to get some really powerful advice from Dr. Julie around your mental health, mindset, and how to move into 2025, how to get the best out of 2025. So make sure you stick around. Before we start, please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm here to help your mental fitness. I want to make a difference, so subscribe and join the community. Julie, welcome back to the Stompcast. It's a lovely thing to say. How are you?
Thank you. It's so good to be back. I'm really well, thank you.
This episode lands in January. I think it's a time of year when people tend to do a lot of reflection. Perhaps the inner critic becomes pretty strong and they look to make kind of changes. We're going to talk now a little bit about how to kind of do that in a constructive, positive way. It's really interesting, isn't it? And especially, I mean, you know, you've sat on, obviously, as a therapist, you've looked after so many people from that side. I'm not a therapist, but I've sat very much on the other side of it and had a lot of therapy. And it's incredible how embedded thoughts can be to the point where they become like genuine beliefs, like factual statements about oneself, like I am not good, or I am not worthy of this, or I fail at things.
And it's really difficult to shake beliefs that have been held for a long time. You know, we develop sort of core beliefs when we're in childhood, and we don't get to control or choose those, but they then can dictate certain choices and decisions that we make as we go through adulthood. It's really difficult to just suddenly change those. It's a really gradual process, and essentially you know your brain learns from evidence, from action, so the change really comes over time when you choose to do something different that is not in line with that detrimental belief. It's some really difficult decisions that have to be made about sort of acting opposite to that belief and treating yourself as if you're someone of value and someone you have a duty to do the best by, you know. And a lot of the work that I've done in the past with people who particularly are highly self-critical is that sort of self-compassion work and getting people to bring to mind someone that they love without condition. So you set an area that you want to work on, make the first goal so small that it's almost laughable, but you know you can achieve it, and you build momentum. And you know, these small victories actually are really crucial for getting you started and in motion, whereas if that first goal is too big, you'll know, because you'll have those thoughts of, oh, not yet, I won't do it just yet. And that's not a problem with you, it's a problem with the goal. So it's actually a real strength to be able to sort of read the room and assess whether you're sort of keeping up with the expectations of your community, and you know, actually makes you a decent person if you're able to make good comparisons, and it enables you to progress and achieve goals and things like that. So it's a useful thing to do, but you know, I think especially with social media and things like that, but even in general, we can make the wrong comparisons that then cause us distress. There's lots that you can't see, so you're sat in full view of all the negatives and the positives of your life and all your weaknesses. All you can see is this sort of curated image that they've created in order to sell you something. That's probably going to lead to you feeling terrible and dissatisfied with a life that you could have enjoyed or that you could have been happy with. There's this kind of lovely experiment where you know, if you give a child one sweet, you'll see their face light up. If you then hand the child next to them 5 sweets, you see this sudden change of, oh, this isn't fair. Yeah, and something that they were 3 seconds ago completely satisfied and joyful about, suddenly becomes not okay because it matters more that somebody else has got more, and that's what social media is all about. It's about creating envy, and that's something that we perhaps didn't have before. Before the sort of the world of social media and things like that, you just didn't get to see a lot of those things, and so you could be more satisfied with your lot because it was enough. And I think there's this push and pull between, yes, but you should be able to aspire to things and want to achieve more, and that's fine. But I think what you can end up doing is living in resentment because it's never enough. Because, in a world where the internet, where you can access anyone, there is always someone who's doing better than you at something, and so it's just unachievable. And so you are constantly sort of feeding resentment and envy and all the things that make you feel terrible.
We've been around for 300,000 years, whatever human beings have been. Social media's been around for like 10, 15, 20 years. Are we actually designed for this? Like, are we able to actually cope with social media and stuff? Or is it an impossible task to try and stop comparing or stop the things that are... Do you know what I mean? I sometimes grapple with that a little bit.
Yeah, it's been set up to exploit our natural tendencies that, when we're living in a traditional way, are actually our strengths and work and help to people to live in cohesive groups and all of those kind of help people to function at their best. Okay, that person is excelling in a certain career and I really want to be doing something like that. Then that's an indication of, okay, maybe what can I learn from them? You have to turn the envy into inspiration, I think, and then act on it. And that's when it becomes a helpful comparison to you, when you're able to act on it in a way that impacts your life in a positive way. But if it's you sitting there living in resentment and bitterness, that's just not good for either of you, and it's definitely going to destroy your relationship with that person if you have one, and in the very least it's going to make your life worse. Sometimes the more you get to know someone, the happier you feel for them, because the more you realise they deserve a bit of a break in life and some good times, because they're probably doing, that's why when we do the social media comparisons, you get to see the celebrations of success. You don't get to see all the work that goes on behind the scenes, or the negative things that they're dealing with in their life that they don't share.
I think it's true. Sometimes just thinking perhaps there are things that I don't know about this situation, like the unaware, I guess, that you've got to go, well, I don't know the full picture.
Like in that kind of scenario, someone does something really well and then you start to really, attack yourself for it and you start to feel shame. You might not even notice any of that sort of internal process. You just notice that you're in the fridge looking for chocolate or wine, or you notice that you're, calling in sick at work and leaving the curtains closed for a day, and those are the responses to those really painful emotions that follow the process. So that's often what happens in therapy is, someone will come in and they're not really sure what the problem is or what's causing it. They just know they feel absolutely terrible. And so it's often a process of kind of breaking it down. What happened before that? What happened before that? What happened before that? And then you can see what's led up to it. And then the work goes on with the stuff that leads up to it rather than the sort of emotional stuff afterwards. So, becoming aware of that process, usually in hindsight, so you look back at, a difficult day or a difficult time and you examine the process. And the more you keep doing that every time it happens, the more familiar you become with the cycle that you're in. And then you get to notice it when it's happening. And that's when the magic happens, because you get this moment where you get to kind of notice, oh, I know where I am on the cycle. I've seen this before. I get a choice at this point to exit and do something different, or I can follow and do the same thing I normally do. And sometimes you'll go around the cycle again, and that's fine. And other times you'll choose something different, and you'll get this small victory of, yes, I've chosen something different that's helped me, and then you get the momentum of how positive that feels. Not easy. It's really easy to sit and say, really hard to do in practice. And that's why therapy takes time, right?
Is it a case then perhaps if you're noticing, you've seen the cycle, you've learnt the cycle, and you see at the top of something, I've seen something, I'm comparing, I'm going to get triggered, I'm going to enter this kind of process now. Is it useful to kind of put that energy onto something else, like having something else that is a distraction or a refocus for you? Like, I'm going to go and do this instead. That
inner world is a bit like a sauna, where there are benefits to being there, but only if you don't stay for too long. So, you know, if you get sort of into this inner turmoil where you're kind of, you can sort of go down, especially if you're doing that kind of work on your own. And so that's when it's great to turn your attention to the outside world and mostly other people. You know, I always say to people, if you're struggling, you know, connect with another human being. The best things for our nervous systems are each other, right? And the worst things for our nervous system too, but that's probably for another day.
Best and worst guys.
Yeah, choose someone you trust, who's good. But yeah, kind of, if you go outwards towards another person, then you're likely to be able to, you get a new perspective on things. You know, a good friend can kind of shift your perspective, that can help that emotional reaction, or they can shift your attention to something completely different, and sometimes bring you back to sort of reality and real life and other things, and it just shifts your focus of attention to something that's going to cause a different emotional response. So it can be really important. And also to then focus on a contribution to other people as well, so how you can improve the day for somebody else, or how you can contribute to the family or do something for someone that just reminds you of, you know, how the kind of contribution you can make.
Isn't it the experience of suffering is like inward perspective? When we are outward looking, we tend to suffer less. Perhaps when we're like, I'm not going to sit in my head and berate myself. I'm going to go out and, I don't know, make dinner with my mum or something like that. Like it's really interesting that it's kind of like we do the inward stuff and then we think we're going to solve inward like suffering by inward looking.
Yeah.
And it's different with the therapist, isn't it? Because when you sit with the therapist, you're not actually just sat there inwardly doing you against yourself.
Yes.
And you only have your perspective.
Yeah.
Which often can look at things in the completely wrong way anyway.
You know, you often spend the first few sessions talking about where you want to be and what you want to achieve, whereas when it's rumination, you're often going around in circles. It's like a thoughts washing machine, isn't it? And you're just churning that same stuff over and over and feeling like you're getting nowhere. And so I think, you know, action is just antidote to so many psychological problems. I think we're taught, aren't we, probably by, you know, marketing and that kind of thing, that this sort of constant state of happiness could be a default if we're getting everything right and have all the right products. Yeah, and actually emotion's just information. It's just your brain giving you a sense of its best guess at what's going on in your body and around you. And when we see it as that, we're able to look at it with curiosity as opposed to pushing it away.
It's an odd one, isn't it, with happiness? Like, people want to be happy all the time, but happiness is just one emotion and we need all of them. If you're happy when your best friend's just passed away or lost your job, you're like, what's wrong with that person? You're supposed to feel all the different things. They all have a job, right? Each emotion has a job.
Yeah.
Fascinating. How do we kind of go into the new year and be compassionate around those things? I think one of the mistakes I made, for example, when my brother died, was I was trying to get in the early stages to an end point, and I was trying to then be like, quote unquote, over it. I have a very different view of it now. But it's hard not to feel that way, especially in times like New Year's, because there's this feeling of like New Year, new start, fresh start. But that's not real. We carry our past with us.
You know, you're still the same person on New Year's Day as you were on New Year's Eve. You know, it's a mark in the calendar, isn't it? Yeah, and it's fair enough. It's nice to it's nice to have a marker point where, you know, you can set new goals or turn in, you know, a new chapter and that kind of thing. But I don't think any of us should really pressurise ourselves to do that if we don't naturally feel the inclination to make a change. Like, you don't have to make a change for the sake of it. You can make a change when you've noticed that you'd benefit from something. That's okay.
Back to the week. Hello, dog. What's your favourite video that you've made so far? I mean, you're famous for many things, but very famous as well for your creativity and ingenuity of thinking of like concepts and things to bring it to life. What's your favourite so far?
Probably the scariest video we made for me was when we burst an exercise ball that I was sat on, and I had to hit the ground, and I've never been so nervous where I just, you know, was sat there anticipating hitting the ground, even though we put like a mattress topper under the rug, so it was a softer landing than it looked. But but super fun, and I think we filmed that because there was so much time. You know, we only had one chance, so we spent so much time preparing to get it right. By the time we filmed it, it was about 4 o'clock in the morning, I think.
Really?
Yeah, because we film at night, so we put the kids to bed, and then, you know, get ready and set up. And Hello, doggies. More sausage dogs.
More sausage dogs. It's funny how it's
So I was in London yesterday. I had a busy day, got home, and all I was thinking of, this never-ending to-do list. There are so many things I could get done. And there was a lovely pool in the hotel. I could feel myself convincing myself to stay in the room and just work, even though I'd been working all day. And then at some point I sort of snapped myself out of that and said, okay, let's just half an hour. It's not the whole evening, it's half an hour. And it made a huge difference. And there's only, in a very small amount of time, you can start to feel replenished. It doesn't take much. And taking a few hours here or there, or in between moments in your day, even in a working day, if instead of in your lunch hour or lunch half hour, some people will check emails while they're eating their sandwich and they're kind of adding to their stress load. Well, actually, if you took your sandwich outside and sat on a bench for 20 minutes and just breathed and, cleared your mind, you'd be much better set up for the afternoon than if you were checking emails.
Honestly, congratulations. I'm a huge fan of watching everything you've achieved. You deserve it. You're a good egg, as they'd say. And it's so nice to see you, do so well and help so many people. Because people often, because in this space, people will say to me, "Oh, I read, I'm like, yes," because it's so nice to see your messaging reaching people. And I always get secondhand pride when someone says, "Oh, I read that book." And my friend, Chris, I said to you about Chris, right? Yeah. He loves your book. He's read that book. It's really helped him. And I remember him. It's funny. He said, "Oh, you should have Dr. Julie on the Stompcast." I said, "Oh, she came right at the start of the second episode. You clearly didn't listen to that one, did you?" But it's just really nice when you see people reap the benefits for it. So congratulations with the new book, and of course, everyone, the link for the book is in the show notes. Make sure you do go and get a copy. I'm certain that you'll find benefit from it. Look after yourselves, whatever you're up to today. Enjoy your stomping. Take care, and goodbye. Awesome. Thank you very much. Producer Charlie, how was that episode? Enjoy it?
It was great. It's always nice to have Dr. Julie back.
It's great to have her back, wasn't it? It's a long time since we had the last one. Before we start, actually, has anyone seen a didgeridoo before? It's not what you call it. I think of it as the didgeridoo, but it's not. What is this?
This is Zoom HN2 or 4, and it's basically how we connect the microphones to me so I can hear and capture all of the audio, so you guys can walk ahead. And then I'm just sort of behind listening.
You've got the mixing and stuff, so you can hear. So it's quite funny because sometimes Charlie will be in the distance in some bush somewhere and like hiding from the sun when it's really hot or something. And I'll just be like, "Charlie," and she's like, you can see her like shudder. I'm like, "Oh, sorry, you can hear me, can't you?"
It's so funny when people are sort of sat further away, and it's always the guest that's just like, "Is everything okay?" And I'm like, yeah, everything's fine.
Everything's wonderful. Thank you so much. It was great to have Julie back on. I really admire it, and it's kind of crazy because I feel like I've really watched her kind of grow. I was kind of in the public space a couple of years before, and obviously in the mental health space, I was aware of what she's doing. I was like, wow, this person's like making like really awesome content, really clever, really well imagined, just brilliant stuff, to be honest. And she just like grew and grew and grew, and then she released the book, and then that flew. To sell 1 million copies of a book, especially something in mental health, is just phenomenal. It's like once in a 50-year thing to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't really know much about sort of book selling stats, but 1 million sounds like a hell of a lot.
It's a lot of unbelievable achievement, and she should be very proud. And it's kind of like, it's happened to a good person. On face value of what I've seen and experienced with her, she's so lovely and warm, and she jumped in the cab with us coming up, we were chatting away, and she's had a rough time. To kind of go through having cancer. She's got a young family. She's got all these things going on, and in the public eye, that's a lot. And I really admire her actually in the way that she's dealt with that, and how she was really open with it, but also actually maintained some of her privacy as well. I thought it was really impressive.
I know, and I think there's always a nice element to the fact of somebody who gives so much support and comfort to other people when they're sort of having to take their own advice. It almost feels like it's even more trusted because that person, that they're saying that they're having a terrible time, and obviously we sort of want her to continue to be healthy, but it's sort of, it feels like quite a strong thing to receive advice from somebody who's like tried and tested almost.
The thing that is, thinking about her content and that episode we recorded, the thing that's so consistent with her is that she really does give things across in an easy and straightforward way. She takes like sometimes quite complex psychological concepts and things, and makes it easy to understand. It's actually the fundamental skill of any educator, isn't it? Like, take something complex, make it easy to understand, and also tell people what they need to know. They need to know everything. It's what they need to know, and she's just so good at that, you know. And so, you know, whether you're, you know, want to learn more about how to develop like your values list into 2025, whether you want to deal with things like comparison syndrome, how to stop, you know, getting to spirals with that, or how to deal with that, or whether you want to deal with things like overwhelm or anxiety. We've covered jealousy. We've covered so much in that episode. Obviously, you've seen some snippets and stuff, and some parts of it I hope were really useful from this video. But if you want that kind of full breadth and that full breathing space of the episode, then yeah, go and have a listen to it. I hope you'll find it really useful.